This episode of METROspectives was brought to you in partnership with Axis Communications.
Hey, Anthony, thanks for joining METROspectives again. How's it going?
Hey Alex, doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, thanks. Weather is still warm here in California, so can't complain. I think we talked about the changing kind of landscape of public transportation and the idea of safety and security and moving away from some things that maybe didn't work in the past. Can you talk a little bit about some of the trends you're seeing kind of in the safety, security, surveillance field as far as public transit goes?
That's a very nice, very good question, Alex. Our technology historically, and I need to be careful what I say because I don't want to say it was always just one, it was very security minded, but used for other purposes, operations and maintenance and
Mhm.
things like that. Um, and fast forward in more recent times, it's being used even more so for the overall operation of the system and ranging from, yes, safety and security is always part of the fabric of it, but for other uses, like I was saying, operations, maintenance, et cetera, and different things within those categories. So what's happening, you're starting to see more and more people are starting to take those into consideration, the multiple uses of the technology, multiple use cases, and they're designing that in upfront, like say for station design, for example. Maybe a while back, 9/11, right after 9/11, a lot of the design was very security minded. It's still security minded, but there's other things that people are taking into consideration on how these technologies can be used for other functional users of the operation.
What kind of trends or developments in the technology market are driving that shift toward multi-use sensors that are even going beyond security applications? I think you touched on it a little bit, but can you get into that a little more deeply?
What trends are driving it?
Yes.
Um, well, we're seeing quantum leaps in technology, quantum leaps in processing. You don't have to look too far, and you see the NVIDIAs of the world or NVIDIA, and they're an enabler, just like we're an enabler. Um, and it's enabling all these AI type platforms to exist because um, you need more compute power, more processing power, more GPU power for computer vision and the AI platforms. Well, it starts with an image, and that's where we come in, because you still need a robust sensor to collect that data uh, in different environments, if you will. Uh, Again, in public transit, the onboard environment's a lot different than the wayside. A lot of
Right.
purpose-built stuff that goes in that space. Um, but it all comes together, between the computer vision sensor, the AI platforms, um, and the processing power. Yeah.
AI, I think, has been a key topic, obviously, in public transit and outside of public transit. I mean, you can't have a conversation without, especially in business, without mentioning AI. Can you talk a little bit about, how it's changing the way organizations use computer vision sensors? For instance, in areas like operations, safety, customer experience.
For public transit, I have to admit, and the adoption's happening. It may be lagging compared to some of the other sectors in transportation, and all public transit has to do, we spoke about this at a conference not long ago, is look at aviation and what they're doing in terms of utilizing it. And a lot of it is in terms of passenger experience and operations and performance and dealing with capacity issues. I can give an example of, you know, and I know you're mass transit, at, but again, sometimes one just needs to look at an adjacent
Right.
market for ideas. But in terms of aircraft and aircraft turnaround and all the surface area management that takes place, plane comes into the gate. It's like a car coming into a pit stop and different activities happening, but they're using these AI platforms to timestamp when certain activities are happening, different things engage, disengage with the plane, and collecting that information to really understand what's going in the operation and where the bottlenecks and choke points are happening.
Hmm.
You're going to start seeing more of this in mass transit. One area, we see is, and it's a safety and operational, from an safety and operational standpoint, is in like level crossings and using these AI platforms to analyze grade crossings for safety to make sure nothing's there, if it's a person or vehicle, et cetera, but understanding if all that technology and equipment is working properly. The gates are coming down at the right time, and the bells are going off, and the lights are blinking the right way, and all that activity, you're seeing these AI platforms analyzing that environment as
Yeah.
an example.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up aviation specifically. We've had a few articles on some of the different lessons that you can take, especially kind of the customer experience. I think both of these industries are focused on that customer experience, making it easier to use, making it more convenient, making it that experience, something that you feel better about and you want to try and do again, as opposed to maybe having a negative experience and avoiding it as much as possible, right?
Yeah. It's all about the passenger experience because, like you said, if they have a great experience, they're going to continue coming back. It's like going to a nice restaurant or not
Right.
so nice restaurant. Uh, and the ridership numbers seem to be coming back pretty good post-COVID. And I know a lot of transit agencies are focused on trying to create this more uh, always a safe and secure environment, but a pleasurable one as well.
Yeah, and I think, when designing these multi-purpose systems, what key considerations should integrators and end users keep in mind? And how does access kind of help them, become more knowledgeable and something that even they may not be sure that they're looking for right now?
Well, that's another really good question. From an end user standpoint, I always like to look at it this way. It's kind of you're not just designing for today, you're designing for the future and
Hmm.
creating a platform for growth.
Great point.
Um, and that's why you're starting to see some of the more and more talk of designing for multi-use, you know, um, and going back to this, open platform that allows for applications to sit on it. That's one avenue for, platform for growth because people are creating applications for the computer vision sensor all the time. And I always like to say, right down the road here, Carnegie Mellon University, there's some students in their dorm room who are coming up with some idea, some application that's going to go on a computer vision sensor. Well, from a system integrator standpoint, I think it's mainly if they're in a design build scenario. Um, I think about my old Bombardier days. A lot of our work was design build, and they set a certain level of requirements, performance requirements, so many passengers per hour per direction is a requirement, um, and maybe the owner, the end user is saying, I want to understand uh, wait times, dwell times. I want to understand, queuing, platform utilization, platform occupancy, and then it's up to the system integrator to come up with the answer,
Mhm.
right? And you see a lot more of that maybe in a greenfield environment, for the system integrator to figure out. Um, so, but we work close with the system integrators uh, if they're in a design build to help them, and even if they're not in a design build where the end user, the owner, the transit agency is saying, okay, I want to use these access computer vision sensors, whatever, but it's still the system integrator is responsible for the implementation side of that. So work close with them to make, because they represent us on the implementation.
Right. And how, I mean, how important is that conversation, how much is Access coming in and explaining what is possible, and how much is Transit asking what they might be able to do with your products?
There's well, we're always coming out with new things. Access is a very roadmap oriented company, and I always like to say those guys in Sweden, they're not just working on the next thing, they're working on the next thing and next thing. So it's it's a continuous process, continuous educational process of working close. There's a lot of transit agencies where we have a very close working relationship with them and always educating them on what's coming, what's possible with the existing technology. We're a very ecosystem uh, oriented company too. So, and we build ecosystems that are specific to different vertical markets, and they're different, you know. Um, Ecosystem for retail is different for an ecosystem in passenger rail, for example, right?
Right.
And so we work close with those type of companies who specialize in putting computer vision sensors on buses or passenger rail or freight locomotives. Um, and we take feedback from the market, from the transit agencies, and et cetera, and push that back into our product management groups in over in Sweden.
Yeah. Anthony, thanks again for taking the time. I have a couple more questions. I think the first is, how important is connectivity and network infrastructure to getting the most value out of modern vision sensors?
Uh, well, infrastructure and connectivity. I go back 2 lives ago in my telecom days and Marconi and Ericsson. Maybe we don't need to mention those, but we can if you want. But if I go back to my telecom days, we used to say it all starts with the network. It all starts with the infrastructure.
Hmm.
And you can come up with the greatest computer vision sensor in the world. If there is not uh, infrastructure for it, a network, power, etc. Um, so that's connectivity is very important. And now you're starting to see, you know, more and more wireless and private cellular networks coming into the market in different adjacent markets, and maybe we'll see some of these coming in certain areas in public transit, maybe for to cover a large, wide area for like a yard or a depot.
Hmm.
And that type of technology will help, for challenging locations, remote locations where connectivity is not there, to transmit that data from the computer vision sensor or the camera back to where it needs to go.
And looking ahead, what do you see as the next big step in computer vision technology for transportation and in public spaces?
I think in public transportation, you're going to see there's still such a large upside um, in the onboard environment,
Hmm.
both internal to the passenger area, but also in forward facing, analyzing track infrastructure, um, analyzing those level crossings, analyzing wayside equipment. Um, if the computer vision sensor can see it, people will come up with algorithms to analyze it, is the way I like to say. And the use cases
Hmm.
are near endless. You're seeing more on behavior analysis and understanding if the operator is, you know, is focused or not focused at the task at hand, if they're on their cell phone or if their seatbelts on or not, or if they're dozing, different things like that. You're seeing more of this happening.
Anthony, great. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Is there anything you'd like to add, or maybe something I should have asked that would be important for our viewers?
I think, we're on the cusp of of technology change. And all starts with the network, and it starts with the computer vision sensor, because if one's not collecting that data, it can't be analyzed. And the
Right.
use cases are near endless, really. The use cases and the users of the data are near endless.
Yeah. Well, great. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Good talking to you, and hope to see you soon, or if not sooner than Expo.
This episode of METROspectives was brought to you in partnership with Axis Communications. To learn more, visit axis.com.